Kia ora, good evening. Inflation is at a 14-year low, having seen the smallest annual increase since 1999. The Consumers Price Index rose 0.7% in the June quarter compared with a year ago. Statistics New Zealand Prices Manager Chris Pike says the increase is the lowest since 1999 and the fourth consecutive annual increase below 1%. Electricity and housing-related prices rose, countered by lower petrol and motorcar prices. The key contributor to the annual increase was higher cigarette and tobacco prices, reflecting a rise in excise. The Consumer Price Index measures the rate of price change of goods and services. Farmer confidence has seen a big lift, rallying on the back of stronger dairy prices and reduced sheep and beef supply. New Zealand farmers have a significantly improved outlook for the year ahead, with the latest quarterly Rabobank Rural Confidence Survey showing more than half of farmers expect the rural economy to improve. This compares with 28% in the previous survey. Just 8% of those surveyed expect conditions to worsen, down from 29%. Rabobank New Zealand CEO Ben Russell says a number of factors are impacting, but particularly higher dairy commodity prices and a looming supply shortage in lamb and beef following the recent drought. Almost a year after they began, talks are still continuing between the owners of the Tiwai Point aluminium smelter and Meridian Energy. A new electricity supply contract between the two came into effect in January, and the smelter wants to renegotiate the deal which was agreed to in 2007. The smelter uses around 15% of the country's electricity and is owned by Pacific Aluminium, a subsidiary of Rio Tinto. A New Zealand aluminium smelter spokesperson says negotiations are still continuing. The smelter continues to lose money, with the economy and aluminium prices being blamed. The Guinness World Record title for the longest television interview will stay in Invercargill, with Guinness ruling that a recent attempt to beat it did not meet the same criteria. A recent attempt in Norway to break the Guinness World Record for the longest television interview has been reclassified by Guinness because it wasn't broadcast on live television. Instead, it's being given its own new category, longest live interview streamed over the internet. This means the 26 hours and 4-second record set by Invercargill pair Tom Conroy and Tim Shadbolt, broadcast on Q Television in April 2012, remains in place. Mr Conroy, Managing Director of QTV, says he feels Guinness made the right decision.
It's great news, but for us it was not just about the interview, it was about the television event itself, whereas they didn't record it on TV, they didn't broadcast it nationwide, and it didn't appear on any TV sets, so we always thought they just might fail. But it's funny how they rang all the time when they were attempting to break the record, but I haven't heard from them since, but I'm willing to take their call.
While Mr Shadbolt says he's pleased to continue holding on to the title.
Well, we're absolutely delighted and very proud to know that we still hold the world record for the longest television interview. However, if Guinness World Records had accepted their attempt as legitimate, we would have had another go and gone for 40 hours.
If someone else breaks your record in the future, will you go back and try and beat them as well?
Well, I'd have to consult with Tom, of course, but I'm certainly very keen. I think it's a record that's acknowledged now throughout the world. It's printed in the Guinness Book of Records, and I think once you set a record like this, you should always be prepared to defend it.
Every year, the Burt Munro Challenge provides a boost to the Southland economy, last year worth an estimated $1 million. But the event also requires a lot of funding, which in itself proves a challenge for organisers. The 8th annual Burt Munro Challenge is being held in November, and organisers, the Southland Motorcycle Club, have already begun preparations. The challenge brings thousands of visitors to the province, and they give an injection to the local economy. The event costs up to $350,000 to run. Southland Motorcycle Club President Craig Hyde says there have been financial setbacks in previous years, but the club's now preparing earlier to make it easier.
Funding's got a bit better in the last couple of years. We have been applying earlier so we can hit the ground running with a bit of funding behind us. The ICC funding we'd gone for about 2 to 3 months ago, and that's come through now. We're still applying for more through the ILT Foundation and other places, but the ILT Foundation have been good to us every year as well, so I don't foresee any issues with that either.
So are you facing any other conflicts or issues with just the whole project this year?
No, there's always little stumbling blocks, but there's nothing major. Everything, because it's repetitive on some of the things we do, year by year, we've got a pretty good stepping stone on where we need to go next.
So around how many entries do you get each year? How many are you expecting this year?
We're average around 450 to 500 entries a year, and that's hasn't really changed a lot probably in the last 2 or 3 years. So we've come off a very successful Barrett Munro last year. So I'm thinking with that, with running more races and things, we're trying to keep the riders obviously enthused of coming back. So everyone seemed very happy with last year. So hopefully that'll help keep our entries up for this year.
Stay with us after the break. Why the impacts of drought conditions on fish in the south may not be known for some time. Welcome back. The impact of close to drought conditions on fish in the south earlier this year may never be known, with the weather again proving problematic. Hundreds of fish were rescued after stranding in some parts of the region's rivers due to low water levels caused by dry conditions in late summer. Fish and Game Southland manager Maurice Rodway says the organisation has been unable to undertake trout counts due to high water levels from the wet weather. While the dry conditions did affect the fish population, he expects the impact to be minimal. He says there may be some indication of what the drought meant for fish stock next summer. Grandparents under the age of 65 who are raising their grandchildren have become job seekers under social welfare reforms requiring them to retrain and seek employment. More than 10,000 children are being cared for by grandparents in New Zealand. I spoke to Invercargill Coordinator for Grandparents Raising Grandchildren, Lynette Nielsen, about how grandparents are affected.
For grandparents aged between the age of 55 and 64, they are going to be subjected to the criteria around seeking employment. And that will be difficult because many of our grandchildren come to us with side issues, trauma, abandonment issues, etc. And they need to know that grandma or granddad is going to be at home waiting for them when they get home, or there to pick them up outside the school gate.
What can you see as some of the issues going forward around this?
Often the information that the grandparents need is hard to obtain. Yes, we have grandparents who, just a few weeks ago, I supported a grandparent who had had her granddaughter for 10 years and hadn't been receiving unsupported child benefit at all. So information is the key, and like the interview we're doing now will inform the grandparents that if they do receive the letter from WINZ saying you need to seek employment, please contact our national office and we will certainly provide you with support to work through the issues that rise for you and for your grandchildren. Yes.
The age group that we're looking at, that 55 to 64 bracket, if they've been out of the workforce for, let's say, 10, 15 years caring for a grandchild, they're expected to go back into the workforce and retrain. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are, is it difficult enough to give all our young folk employment? So how are we going to give our older folk employment as well? I have grandchildren who are desperately looking for employment, want to work. That's their goal, is to find employment, but it's very difficult to do. I wonder where all these jobs are going to come from.
Invercargill City Council's chambers were a full house today as 27 people officially became new New Zealand citizens. Invercargill Mayor Tim Shadbolt welcomed the new citizens from 11 countries, including Belgium, Russia and Zimbabwe. Each new citizen took an oath of allegiance to Queen and country, and each family was presented with a native tree, symbolic of putting down roots in New Zealand. Mr Shadbolt shared his thoughts on the importance of being an active member of the community. Among those becoming citizens were Adam and Agata Kalzuni, originally from Poland, who are already embracing Kiwi culture and giving the idea of giving back.
It's a part of what we decided to do. The moment we decided to actually come to New Zealand, it's not a halfway. Either we are going to and trying to be a part of New Zealand, trying to merge with the communities or not. And we decided that we wanted to, so we wanted to finish.
So it was just natural, just to go. As we decided to stay in New Zealand, stay in Southland, so we wanted to go the whole way.
Cool, and like the Southland region in particular, what drew you there?
As always, there is some of coincidence. I was actually quite lucky coincident with my work. So we came after my work. Then I got
a job as well.
Work.
And and we decided to stay because we liked it.
Yeah. And what are you guys doing to get involved in the community?
We're trying to engage with local clubs. We are part of Southland Photographic Camera Club.
We are part of Toa Fighting Systems Karate Club here in Invercargill as well, and English language partners as well.
Also officially becoming a Kiwi today, Margaret Maka, originally of Tonga, who says she felt it was important to become a citizen.
Not only just to get a New Zealand passport, but proud to be a New Zealand citizen. Yeah.
And what are you doing to get more involved in the community?
Helping with voluntary work like Kids Zone Festival and all those kinds of things in the community.
Stay with us. Coming up in sport, former English county cricketer Kevin Cooper reviews the first Ashes test. That's next after the weather. Good night.